What does Quebec, the G20, the capital of BC wine country, and a Toronto jail cell have in common? Paul Martin. Hello everyone, my name is Lyle Loveday, and this week on Canadian Backyard Chats, or the CBC, we're going to be talking about Paul Martin, someone who our good old friend Schlee here calls the unoffending Prime Minister. Now, Paul Martin, no, Guck, not that Paul Martin. That Paul Martin was born on August 28th, 1938 in Windsor, Ontario to Paul Martin and his wife, Eleanor Alice Adams. His childhoods were filled with summer vacations to the Adams family cottage. That kind of sounds like a movie. Anyways, and watching his father enjoy a successful political career. Martin himself would not be interested in politics while helping his father's campaign, but he would eventually develop an appetite for the public office. But his father encouraged him to wait till he was 45, and so he established a successful company first. Being a son of an MP doesn't get you a get-out-of-jail-free card, though, which is something that Martin had to learn the hard way. After attending a Liberal Party convention at the U of T campus, at the U of T campus, Martin refused to disperse when ordered to by a police officer, landing him a night in jail. Thankfully for him, the preceding judge the next day had a gracious attitude and let him off with just a warning. In 1961, he received his BA in philosophy from U of T and also his law degree in 1964, also from U of T. In 1965, he had married the girl next door. Her name was Sheila Cohen, and their son, Paul Martin III, would be born the following year. Throughout the 1970s, his intuition for business would be proven as he led many successful companies. In the 1980s, Martin made a variety of key business decisions that would see his companies reach pretty big success, and even CLS, his main company, made Canadian history by making the largest takeover of another firm in Canadian history, at least at that time. At the age of 49, Martin would finally get elected into Parliament, 4 years after his dad's recommended age of 45. This would effectively end his time at CLS, as he would no longer be president, and before he became Prime Minister, everything was in either sold or in blind trust. But it'd be another 10 months before he was actually given a position in the House of Commons. He was supposed to be the Treasury Board, the Housing and Urban Affairs critic. It'd be 11 months, though, until he threw his name into the lot for becoming the party leader. I mean, talk about ambitious. He just got there. I mean, come on. Unfortunately for him, he didn't win. He only got 25% of the votes, which, I mean, he's been in the party for 2 months. And Chrétien would take the chief role. After a few more years as various critic positions with the opposition, the Liberal Party would finally be elected, and Chrétien would insist that Martin become the finance minister.
But Martin turned him down!
But then he said yes, and he embarked on a mission to wrangle Canada's national debt. For months, Martin grilled ministers and staff on ways he could save and cut costs. In the end, he was able to cut $6.8 million out of the budget. But he wasn't done there just yet. The next year, he unveiled a budget that would slash $25 billion and put 4,500 people out of work. Ouch! This hard-hitting and decisive action may have seemed harsh to many people at the day, but it managed to work out in the long run, as before his tenure as finance minister ended, he was able to get a balanced budget and even offer tax breaks. I mean, who'd have thought it back then after 28 years of deficits? Martin received legendary success as finance minister in a variety of other ways, though, and for that, let's go to the thought bubble. In 1999, the G8 just wasn't working anymore. The big shot European countries kept imposing regulations onto developing countries that made it impossible for them to, develop. After meeting with this guy, Martin set out to design a new G8, but with 20 countries, which would lead to a stronger financial world. The first meeting was shaky, with no one really understanding what was going on. But in 2000, Martin's leadership made this guy from before called the best international meeting he ever been to. Essentially, he staged an intervention with Africa and America and made them work on an issue of agriculture which they were fighting about. This opened the door to real conversations about development. He would go on to chair the G20 one more time in 2001, but after he became Prime Minister, he was too busy. But now that he's retired, he continues to advocate for the organization. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Now, as confidence in Chrétien began to wean away, Martin's second bid as Prime Minister ended up being a huge success. He beat out his only competitor in the Liberal Party leadership race with 94% of the vote. 94! That means like out of 100 people, 94 people voted for him. Like, wow! Once Chrétien finally stepped down, he would become the 21st Prime Minister of Canada. Before the year was over, Martin announced the creation of a variety of different government departments, including the Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Department and the Canadian Public Health Agency, both of which are pretty important right now, if I say so myself. Martin also restructured various positions in the federal government after he forced a review of the First Nations Governments Act. And later on that year, he introduced a governance legislation. Martin's legacy as Prime Minister, though, was kind of short-lived, as his time in office was only 2 years, 10 months, 6 days, and probably a few hours. But before he was booted out the door, he did manage to redefine federalism. Yeah, you heard that right. Martin recognized that, in the new global society, economic competitivity wouldn't be determined country versus country. Instead, it would be determined city versus city. And so he set out to make the federal government more relevant in the daily lives of you and me, the average day Canadians. He also set out to nationalize our goals so we go in a unified direction and left it to the provinces to figure out how exactly to get there. Boom. Whoa! Did you guys hear that? It means it's time for a mystery document! So the way it works is sitting on this tray, there's a mysterious document, and I have to read a part of it. If I get the document right, then I just move on with the presentation. If I get it wrong, I have to eat a jar of pickles. Why pickles? It was the first thing that came to my mind. Here we go. Today's mystery document. Whereas Parliament recognized that narrowing and ultimately eliminating the trouble gaps between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Canadians that exist in the area of education, skills development, healthcare, housing, access to clean water, and employment as provided for in the Kelowna Accords. Well, that's enough reading. That just gave it away. This is the Kelowna Accords. Not like I didn't know that in the first place. All right. That's okay. We're going to continue to ad-lib things because... Oh, the Kelowna Accords. You held so much promise. You set the nation on the path of reconciliation. If only there was a little bit more time, you might have just been ratified, and the world would have been all the better because of you. Unfortunately for the Kelowna Accords, Martin's government was just running out of time. You see, they inherited the sponsorship scandal from the Chrétien government. Basically, the Liberal government was giving money to ad firms in Quebec, which would then promote the federal government in Quebec. But they didn't use all that money to support them, and instead that extra money was just donated to the Liberal Party again. So essentially, the federal government was giving companies money to donate back to them, and you can see why that was a bit of a scandal. Even though his name personally was cleared, his opponents capitalized on the scandal and used it to force an election, which the Harper Conservatives would win. I wonder if that's why they keep trying to do this to Justin Trudeau, because it worked on Martin. Interesting. Anyways, after his government ended, Martin would resign as party leader, and he tried to pass a private member's bill that would force the Kelowna Accords through. It failed. Ultimately, Martin continued to be an MP until the 2008 election, where he chose not to run again. So, even after he retired, Martin continued to work hard. In fact, he became a reality TV judge.
The next great Prime Minister.
But he actually became more well known for his work in the continued advocacy of the G20, to which one reporter called him a broken record. He also did a lot of philanthropic activities both globally and within Canada with the First Nations people. In 2016, Martin would be honored with his own picture in Parliament. Because you know you made it when you get a portrait inside Parliament. Martin would be a man with vision. He had the skill sets to negotiate and would understand and listen to people. His character was beyond reproach, as proven by the sponsorship scandal, and his decisive decision-making throughout his career is evidence to his decisiveness. He might have been lacking in some humility, but that's just from my opinion of watching a few interviews with him. Ultimately, Paul Martin made a prime minister. Canadian Backyard Chats is written and directed by myself, Lyle Loveday. I'm also the chief executive producer. Our editor is my alter ego, Guck. And all of our facts come from Wikipedia, except for the facts that don't come from Wikipedia, because almost none of them come from Wikipedia. The only fact that actually does come from Wikipedia is the day that Martin lost government, or not government, he lost his seat in Parliament, because Schlee here forgot to mention that. I mean, come on, Schlee. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Guck, why did you bleep me out there? I said Martin's a really good prime minister, not